Hey everyone, it's our last session of science and our look into living things and ecosystems, that community of plants, animals, habitats and microorganisms that live together and work together. So, shall we begin? We are going to be in this session looking closely at one animal and its ecosystem. And when we look at one animal, we call it a case study. Sometimes you'll do case studies in geography, but today we are doing our case study focusing on biology, thinking about the science of the living world and particularly an animal. But before we go any further, let's get ourselves warmed up with a little quiz on all the vocabulary that we have been learning throughout the whole of this unit. Are you ready? I know you'll be able to do this. So, I have some key words, some key vocabulary, scientific language that we have been using since the first lesson of these science ecosystem lessons. So, got habitat, ecosystem, deforestation, classify, organism, and finally, impact. Now, some of you are probably, I know these already. Brilliant, I'm so pleased. But I have got some jumbled up explanations of each of these words that you can use to help you. So if you want to, you could pause the video now and you can write out the definitions, or you can just in your head start to draw. Don't actually draw it on your screen, but draw in your head where you might connect each word with each explanation. So pause the video now to do those things. So, have you connected up? Have you got all of your explanations for each of our scientific vocabulary? I know that you're used to using all of these after our sessions. So, habitat. What's a habitat? Absolutely, a place. It's a place that an animal lives. A habitat is a place that an animal lives. Ecosystem. A community of plants, animals, habitats, and microorganisms. I knew you would have that one. Deforestation. Deforestation is when we cut down forest or groups of trees, and we do that to make the land used in a different way. Cutting down trees. Classify, that's when we group things according to similarities. When we talk about classifying, often with biology, we're talking about how we group animals. That can be by diet, it can be by species, but it can also be about their habitats and where they live. Organism, an individual living thing. Did you remember that one? Brilliant. And finally, impact, to have a strong effect on something. So for our final session, you are going to need your pencil or pen, your paper or your workbook, and you might later want a plain piece of paper or a large piece of paper because we will be doing some poster work to finish our whole unit off. Pause this video now if you need to go and get any of those things. Great. So we are still thinking about change in this session and our ecosystem, particularly the ecosystem or system of one animal, the impact that we have on the ecosystem this animal lives in, and the threat that we have to ecosystems and animals in the rainforest. Are you ready? Here is our majestic animal. Look carefully. We're going to start by using our observation skills, remembering that biologists first of all observe the tiniest details and think carefully about what they are seeing. Now, if you don't know what this animal is, that's fine. We're going to be using our scientific skills to classify, to work out which animal we are working with. But first, I just want you to look very carefully, and what do you notice about this animal? Have you seen its hair? Have you thought about its arms and legs, where it lives, its habitat? There's lots that you can pick out from this one photo. Here are my notes. So I noticed its long orange hair. That has to be a defining feature. Not every single animal has got long orange hair. I can tell that it's a mammal. It's got live young that it is looking after, it's carrying at the moment, and must feed its young milk. I think it must be part of the monkey family, and I know there's a special word for that, but I've just written a note here, monkey family, just to remind myself. There are 2 arms and 2 legs, and it clearly is living in the trees. Its habitat is the trees, and you can see how its feet have adapted so that it can curl and hold on to that vine. So it clearly is used to swinging in those trees. It is most at home up high rather than down low. And that is all that I have gathered as a scientist looking from this one picture, from observing this animal. So now I have an idea that this is a mammal and it is part of the monkey family. I can start to pull on other scientists' learning and use my classification key. So let's classify. Primates, that's the word, a primate, a primate. We are primates. It is a subspecies of our mammals. And we can use this classification key to work out which primate we are talking about when we're looking at this oranged haired mammal. So primates without tails. Definitely this mammal does not have a tail. And the adult is definitely heavier than I am, and I am definitely heavier than 30 pounds. So we are talking about this area here. Is definitely not a given. Now I need to think about whether its legs are longer than its arms or its legs are not longer than its arms. Looking very carefully at this picture and leg, what do you see? Yes, the legs are not longer than the arms. So we're not talking about a human, which we probably could have guessed, but you never know, there could be an orange-haired human somewhere. Now we're looking at its fur. So we're thinking about whether its fur is not orange or red, or whether it is orange or red. Did you get to orangutan when you were using this key? Brilliant, well done. We are talking about the orangutan. This is the species of animal that we will be having our case study and centering our case study around. The orangutan. I love these animals. So now that we know that we have an orangutan, let's have a look at a food web, a Malaysian food web. This is a place in Asia, and we can look at how this ecosystem works by looking at this food web. We can pick out a little bit more about our orangutan. So I have worked out the orangutan is a secondary consumer. Remembering consumer is eating and needs to eat to get its energy. So the orangutan will eat live plants and fruits and leaves, but it will also eat insects. So I can work out not only is it a consumer, it's a secondary consumer because it will eat insects which have eaten other producers, but it is also an omnivore. What does an omnivore mean? Brilliant. It is an animal that will eat plants and will eat other animals. So orangutan is also an omnivore. So I've learnt lots of things just from looking at this food web. Now, it was really interesting to see that there isn't particularly an animal that is a predator to the orangutan. It is pretty much at the top of its own food web. I wonder why that might be. So, where are these orangutans found? Hopefully you can use your geography skills to start to work out where in the world these orangutans are found. We've already had a clue in the last food web. We are talking about Southeast Asia. Here we have Australasia, and we are up here in Europe, but we're talking about the rainforests that are found in Southeast Asia. And actually, orangutans are only found in 2 countries. That's crazy that there's only 2 places that you can find these primates in the wild. 2 places, and that is Sumatra and Borneo. These are 2 countries in Southeast Asia. So you wouldn't find orangutans in the wild in the Amazon, for example. These are native purely to Southeast Asia. So first, before we go any further, I would like you to create a mind map of everything you know already about the orangutan. Now, if you are really keen, you could pause this video now and you could do some research on the internet yourself to add to your mind map. That would be fabulous. Or you can think back and think about all the things we've already unpicked just through observation, through classification, looking at where the animal lives, and also through its food web. We've already unpicked quite a bit about this mammal. You might want to think about species, its habitat, the ecosystem that it lives within. What plants does it live alongside? Where is its habitat? What other animals might it be reliant on? What diet does it have, and what does it look like? So you could write orangutan in the middle, or if you wanted to draw a picture in the middle of your mind map, that's fine. I've got my picture in the middle of mine. And I have, just to show you what I mean, I've drawn a line. And here I have written, the orangutan is a mammal. It gives birth to live young and feeds its babies milk. We know that, we can see that in the picture, and that is a fact. So you will be filling your page with facts about the orangutan. Are you ready? Press pause now. Well, I am sure that you have so much to say about these amazing creatures. I've got some notes just in case you'd forgotten anything. So we have the orangutan. It is a mammal. The species is a primate. It's a type of primate. You might want to link it to monkeys and gorillas and humans and talk about how they are all linked. They are found in the Southeast Asian rainforest. And if you were being really, really impressive, you will have mentioned the two countries, which were Borneo and Sumatra. It lives in the trees. Its habitat is the trees, and actually they are tree swinging animals. They very, very rarely come to the ground. Their whole lives are lived up in the tops of the trees, which is how they've adapted their bodies to be able to do that. They are omnivores. They eat insects and plants, and they're a secondary consumer. So sometimes they'll eat producers like fruit and bananas, but other times they'll eat those insects. And it has very few predators. When they are young, when they're babies, there are tigers and leopards that can kill them, but generally there are very few things which will kill them whilst they are living in the trees, and mainly because they're where their habitat is. It's not easy for those predators, such as tigers, to get up to them, and so they are very, very protected up in the tops of those trees. Now, you might want to pause again to see if there's anything else that you want to add to your mind map. Brilliant, great work. So, we know that we're looking at orangutans, and our case study is focusing on orangutans and their ecosystem. But what is their biggest threat? Because if there isn't a tiger that is going to kill it very often, or a leopard that's going to threaten its existence, what is the orangutan's biggest threat, and why are we hearing so much about them? Have a look carefully at this picture. What do you notice? It makes me very sad. You can see that this poor orangutan is sat on a tree which has very few leaves and is surrounded by a very barren landscape. That means that there is not that much left around it. You can see that trees have been cleared, which must mean that deforestation has taken place. So clearly, deforestation is one of its biggest threats. That is something that can stop its existence, something that might make it die or make it a hard life to live. We mentioned that orangutans lived in the trees. What do you notice that is wrong with this picture? You can see a family, a group of orangutans who are on the ground. Their habitat has been destroyed, and it looks like fire because you can see smoke in the background. Has been purposely destroyed by deforestation, human impact. The change that has occurred in this ecosystem has come about because of humans. Without their trees, they don't have the insects that they would normally eat, the leaves or the fruit that they would eat, and suddenly their habitat, their home has gone. And we learnt early on in our lessons that actually habitat was one of the key areas for survival for animals. And one area has been destroyed. Now, when we're talking about orangutans, often you will hear people mention the words palm oil. Palm oil is a natural resource that can be found in palms that are grown in rainforests. You'll find these rainforests often in Africa, that's where they first were found, but they have also now been started to be planted in Asia. So, it is said that half the products that we buy in a supermarket, so shampoo, toothpaste, biscuits, pizza, soap, all the things that you probably would buy in a supermarket, has got palm oil in. Just think about that for a minute. Things that we buy in our supermarket has got palm oil, things that are grown in rainforests, in a different ecosystem, far, far away from us. You could pause this video now if you wanted to do your own investigation and get some of the products in your house and just have a look, with permission from your parents, have a look at whether there is palm oil in it. But you will find that there are loads of products that we see every day, we don't even think about, that contain palm oil. It's basically a type of vegetable oil. So, 8% of the world's deforestation between 1990 and 2008 occurred because of palm oil. People were cutting away the forest and burning away the forest so they could grow more palm oil. What impact would that have on our orangutans? If we're talking about Southeast Asia and the cutting down of these forests and the burning of these forests, what impact is it going to have? Let's have a look. You can see that the air is smoggy and smoky, which is obviously a threat to all the animals, not just orangutans, but also humans, that this is not a good climate to be living in. There are no trees. The habitat of the orangutans is totally cut down. And the food, the green, it's all disappeared, all so that we can grow palm oil. Often, babies are orphaned. Orangutan babies are orphaned without their parents, or they're cut off from their parents who might have been in a different part of the forest, or families might be split because of where the palm oil deforestation has taken place. So Indonesia and Malaysia make up over 85% of the global, that means world, supply of palm oil. So Indonesia and Malaysia, so we're talking about Southeast Asia here, 85% of the whole supply for the whole world of palm oil comes from there. That's a huge amount of palm oil is grown in these countries. And no wonder that this is a threat to the orangutan. 100,000 Bornean, remember we are talking about one country, so in one country where these orangutans live, 100,000 Bornean orangutans were lost between 1999 and 2015. And this is before we even think about recent years. 100,000 orangutans. And so many more orphaned. That means that their parents have died. So, we know that one of the best ways to make change is to make people aware of what is happening, the threat that humans are having on the ecosystem, and in particular on the orangutan species. So I would like you to finish off all of our science learning to create a poster that shows the importance of the rainforest ecosystem and how changing that ecosystem through deforestation has really threatened some species, in particular the orangutan. Your poster can be as colourful as you want. You might want to pause and print off pictures if you can. You can draw, you could have key messages. However you want to do this is up to you. You can be as creative as you like. But the key thing is to make people aware that these orangutans are in danger and that we can do something about it by the choices we make. So you might want to pause your video here and get creating. So hopefully you have really thought about ecosystems, in particular our rainforest, the lungs of our earth, and thinking very carefully about how important these ecosystems, this group of plants, animals, habitats, and microorganisms are to the whole of our world. And I hope that you have really enjoyed going through our science as much as I have with you. Goodbye. It's been great learning with you.